Last night, I think I dreamed I was in a head-on collision, a dream forgotten then abruptly resurfaced later in the day when I was actually driving. Details escape me. I think I was shaken up, but that's all. I don't need Freud to help me sort this one, and besides, it wasn't about sex. As I mentioned last month, whatever vague intent I had set for 2019 to work less has already proved quite the hilarious joke on me. Besides already knocking out an astonishing number of written words, the universe came banging on that door marked Heart Mine and very unceremoniously announced, "Elevator up, sister, all aboard." And let me tell you, this is not one of those elevators on the Upper East Side tended to by a uniformed doorman with an Irish brogue. This is one of those claustrophobic lifts like you find in Paris, smaller than a phone booth and with the mechanical guts of the sort you might find in an early episode of the Flintstones. So while I can see that instead of laying low this year, actually my job is to rise up, I can already tell the ride will be slow and rickety and loud, and if the pterodactyl in charge of the pulley gets tired and lets go, that's going to be akin to pulling the plum card in Candyland, sending me plummeting down, forcing me to try again. But I feel like I don't have a choice in this trying. It is time. I'll explain why in a moment. But first, let's journey back 31 years to 1988, when I was a cub journalist at Whittle Communications in Knoxville, Tennessee, and was handed an assignment to interview 5 psychics for an article, super generic stuff, predictions for the new year. On this assignment, I found myself one night in a shiny Hyatt in Memphis, and after drinking at the glittering bar, I went to my fancy room to sleep before my next day meeting with Madame whomever. That night was memorable for 2 reasons. One, I woke up in the middle of it and went to the bathroom and nearly had a heart attack when I spotted someone watching me pee before realizing it was just me in the full-size mirror. The other, far more important, is a dream I had. One more profound than last night's head-on collision, one I have never forgotten. In it there was a house, and the house was infested with rats, and the rats wore helmets fashioned from those brightly colored tin ashtrays of the sort found in the basement bars of dads and uncles all across America in the 70s. I also remember having to move stuff out of that house. It was so vivid. The next morning, after enduring the verbal advances of an old redneck Memphis cabbie who propositioned me on our drive and, pointing out big round bales of hay, informed me in a deep drawl that in these parts the cows never get a square meal, har, 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 I found myself facing a medium of so-so talent when it came to prognostication, but as for dream interpretation, I'd say she nailed it. The house represents your person, she said, and those rats are bad habits, extra stubborn. They're wearing helmets. I didn't even consciously know then that I was an alcoholic, though by that point at 24, let's just say I had more than a few incidents that should have served as neon alerts. But I wasn't ready to see those flashing signs. Subconsciously, though, those rats were heralding a message I refused to heed for more than another decade. A while back, I wrote of standing in the Dallas airport listening to the final chapters of Tara Westover's Educated and openly crying in the terminal as I absorbed a story that was like my own story, only on steroids, about a very smart young woman who was denied an education and who fought back and ran away and made a life for herself, but not without this coming at a great cost. I can't say for sure if it was that book that finally got me back into reading the way I have vowed to get back into reading for years now, but here I am. Interestingly, there's a major connection between books and addiction for me. I know now that reading was my first addiction, and for this I have no regrets. Books were my great escape, my solace, the inspiration to grow up and become a writer. Books were eventually my ticket out. I wish I could go back in time and find the subversive librarian who planted a secret copy of Our Bodies, Ourselves in the teeny-tiny library of my teeny-tiny hometown, a library housed in the basement of the police station. Who knew you could do more with zucchini than make bread? My one bad experience with reading came in 4th grade thanks to my teacher, Mrs. Overcash, a very pretty, very bitter and controlling minister's wife. My elementary school only went to 4th grade, and by the time I got that far, age 10, I had already, years before, ripped through that class reading level. And so, in a setup that would follow me through the rest of my education as I continued frequently to test grades above my level, a solution was found in which I, desperate for approval, company, and attention, would be put in independent study, banished to work on my own. With Mrs. Overcash, this meant being assigned books and writing book reports. Only I didn't know what book reports were. This was never clearly explained, and worse, Mrs. O got to pick the books. I recall trying to stumble through The Witch of Blackbird Pond, finding it impenetrable and fumbling with the report. I don't know if it was this occasion or another, but Mrs. O ripped me a new asshole at some point, which, given what I was enduring on the home front, I should have been better equipped for, but I was not. Then, when the beloved Miss Richardson, my music teacher, noted I was deeply troubled over something, she coaxed it out of me and, bless her, went to bat for me and let Mrs. Overcash have it. That was the good news, an advocate. The bad news was that I discovered this only because the evil Mrs. Overcash cornered me, ripped me another new asshole, and told me I better never ever pull a stunt like that again, leaving me to live in the same silent terror at school that my father spawned with his rage at home. I look back over incidents like this now, and of course I understand no child should ever be treated like that. And I know that children are still treated like that all the time. And I know that even now, halfway into my 6th decade on the planet, I continue to wrestle with the fallout of the screaming adults that punctuated my early years. I should add that, thankfully, this pain is greatly mitigated by remembering a vast host of other teachers, some of whom I remain in touch with, who, like Miss Richardson, went to bat for me, pushed me to reach as high as I could, and gave me the positive feedback I desperately needed. Happily, all that encouragement offered a solid foundation for me to go on to eventually find great success with my work. And by success, I mean the joy of getting to do work about which I am passionate, the ability to make decent money, and the fucking humbling honor of having an audience willing to read my work, to respond to it, to communicate with me, to connect. Sadly, though, I have yet to fully overcome the low self-esteem bullshit that has plagued me since infancy. Weirdly, or maybe not, when one has a strong public persona, a big mouth, and the ability to get shit done and convince others to join in, proclamations of being shy, an introvert, and perpetually in battle with an inner critic are often met with disbelief and protest. No way are you an introvert, people say. Or, but you're so strong, you're so courageous. Now let's talk about Carrie Fisher. If ever the saying about the teacher appearing when the student is ready, running into my pal Chris the other day very randomly and having her blurt out that I just had to read The Princess Diarist is it. Carrie was a complex woman and she had lived through a lot. On the surface, this book is about her affair with Harrison Ford during the filming of the first Star Wars. It includes her later-in-life reflections of that time, but it also features journals she, then 19, kept while the affair was happening. Are they melodramatic? Yes, they are. Are they also profound? Hell yes. Carrie, the younger and the elder, offers so much keen insight into how one can be strong, smart, successful, loved, and at the very same time an emotional wreck of a human, the wreckage always made worse by falling for unavailable men. Her wit, her precision, her observations of self and others are entertaining, bolstering, fortifying. Yo, Mrs. Overcash, check it. I just did a fucking book report, bitch. And yeah, Carrie was an addict, which she doesn't really cover in this book, but did so wonderfully in her book Wishful Drinking. In short, I am in awe of her life, her honesty, her reflections. All of this is excellent food for me as I trundle onto the rickety elevator now. A year ago, I stumbled into a recovery group meeting focused on healing from childhood abuse. I had my emotional ass handed to me and beat a hasty retreat right back out the door, too overwhelmed to get into all that shit. Then, 14 months into working on emotional sobriety in a different recovery program, I had a foundation under my feet and went back to do some really, really hard fucking work. Work that makes me wildly uncomfortable. I feel like I've stepped into some reality show that is a cross between Scooby-Doo and the Marie Kondo thing. Like the house in the dream that is my life, the house that represents me, just like that psychic told me all those years ago right after I refused to fuck a cab driver, I'm discovering there are many rats I had not seen before, or at least from which I averted my eyes. And worse, there is a basement and an attic I had not even known existed. Here, I thought I had been tidying up the house that is me pretty good. And I had been, but Jesus H., this attic, this basement. Shaggy and Velma are running downstairs with Scooby, and Daphne and Fred are mounting the rickety fold-down attic stairs to go up there, and Marie Kondo is racing back and forth between them, admonishing them for splitting up, asking them to get rid of all the non-sparking shit. And guess what? It's all non-sparking shit, and there is a shit ton of it. I'm exhausted at the mere prospect of clearing this crap out, exhausted but determined. I am devouring books now. Books about recovery, about boundaries, about 12 steps, problems, solutions. I am reading about education even as I am educating myself. I have gotten out a highlighter, the old-fashioned yellow kind, and the first time I popped the lid off, I had such a visceral reaction to color and smell, such a memory of running away to college, of that first step in self-discovery, albeit with a keg tap in one hand, balancing the collected works of Shakespeare in the other. The books tell me this: expect grief, a lot of it. Expect when Marie holds up the memory of the father shredding the coloring book of 2-year-old you to cry hard over the loss that represented. Expect that when she makes you look at the times you injured yourself, stepped on a nail, fell down the basement stairs and hit your head on a cinder block and blew a hole in your skull, and these times and others, your first thought was not, I am hurt, I need help, but instead, how can I hide this? I am going to be in so much trouble for causing problems. You will have to sit down and cry and cry and cry some more, also hard. But then you can throw it all away. And with each piece that you dispense, the pterodactyl will sigh with the joy of a lightened load and pull a little harder, and up the elevator will go. Up and away to a galaxy far, far away, where my gold bikini awaits, and where any intergalactic memory slug shall, at long last, be slain with ease.
Hey y'all, thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you'll like and subscribe to my channel. And if you like this episode, I hope that you'll copy this link, share it with a friend, paint it on a wall, put it on your social media. That'd be great. Thanks a million. Take it easy.